Good afternoon, comrades and friends, and thank you so much, Comrade Ariella, for that presentation. It's so important that we hear on a first-hand basis the plight of our immigrant sisters and brothers and families, because in many ways, in this country, that's what May Day 2017 is all about. I want to make a few points. I'll make them as briefly as I can. We're all thinking about the situation in Korea, in the DPRK, the war threat, and it seems the right time to pose the question, or even better, the challenge. We've seen a big anti-Trump movement. We've seen the women's marches. We've seen progressive people go to the airports to fight the ban in solidarity with Muslims and Arabs and black and brown people. Now we must see if we can make this anti-Trump movement, or big parts of it, an anti-imperialist movement. Not just an anti-war movement. That would be a good step. But an anti-imperialist movement, because the process of doing that requires education. I don't think it will be that difficult. I could be wrong. It's made all the more difficult because the liberal wing of the Democratic Party, what the mainstream wing of the Democratic Party says is that they're all imperialists, they're neocons, and I might touch on that in a bit. But the liberal wing, especially in the context of using Russia rigged the elections, they made the issue into Russia. This is a huge mistake, and it's confused everybody, or potentially confused people, and it's made it easier, or I should say, can make it easier for the imperialists to carry through on their war, because we're disarmed. I used to enjoy watching Rachel Maddow on CNBC. I can't be the only one who thought when she came on, wow, a lesbian woman, she's progressive, finally got an important spot. We don't agree with everything she's saying. She's bourgeois, but, you're so used to the rest of, Fox and CNN, and what has she dedicated? And I'm not just singling her out. She's an example of all of the phony leftists, yes. Really. What has she done? Last night, in the midst of this war crisis, she had videos of the courageous people of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea rallying, in the square with their weapons, and she was calling Kim Jong-un, the leader, a madman, insane. And this is what they do. This is the same thing as calling immigrants rapists. You dehumanize them. You dehumanize them so it's easy to shoot them, to bomb them, to jail them, to carry out genocide. It's racist. And we have got to separate anybody who's trying to be progressive from this kind of racist, anti-communist propaganda. That's number one. Number two, we just got to tell it like it is. I think people will understand. What's the strategy behind these bombings? This enormous bomb being dropped on Afghanistan, a defenseless country, really. Which to the imperialists, that's just an experiment lab. Oh, some Muslims, some brown people, let's drop what's almost a nuclear weapon. We don't care who dies. We don't care who's destroyed. We don't care who lives around there. They can't defend themselves. That's what we do. Let's bomb Syria. The strategy, there's no deep, intelligent, sophisticated military strategy. It's terror. It's like lynching. It's like raping people. It's like bombing, Baltimore, or bombing Harlem, or bombing Standing Rock, or beating up and killing prisoners who are defenseless in prison. That's what this is. It's old. It's old. It's just terror. We will bomb you. They love bombs. They think that they can get away with, this is the Pentagon, not even using troops. Whether they can do that is another question. But they're so high on all their technology, we can press a button, hundreds if not thousands of miles away, and we can bomb you. We don't even have to look at you face to face. It's technological, genocidal, bomb everybody nightmare, I think people can understand it. I think they can see the relationship between the war here in this country and the war abroad. I could be wrong, but I think they can see the relationship clearer than at any time before. We shall see, and we shall try to help them. Now, the threats against the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, for short, the DPRK, that's another matter. That's different than Afghanistan or Syria. This is more serious. This is toying around with a war with China. This is toying around with a war that will engulf not only all of Korea, what they call the entire Korean peninsula, but all of Asia, which would mean the entire world, even a nuclear war. See? And you can't just attack our comrades in the DPRK. They've been prepared for this. They're strong. Not that they're in a human way stronger than anybody else. It's just a situation that they've faced for 60 years has made them tough in order to survive. Imperialism has tried to starve them. It's never even declared that the war is over. It wants to destroy them so they can take it back. And so the people of the DPRK, their government, their army, they've had to be real tough. There's so many imperialist news people in the DPRK now, probably more than ever before. They let them in because they want them to see things. And they have these 24-hour cable networks, so they have to fill it. That's why they say a lot of stupid stuff in addition to repeating themselves. But they have so much time that they actually let something through, some coverage of the DPRK through, that I thought was very telling. But it says a lot about the revolution and about the people of Korea. They interviewed some people in front of a housing project in Pyongyang that they were opening up. It was a huge housing project, just hundreds of new homes, apartment houses. And the spokesperson that spoke to, I think it was CNN, said, "See these houses? This is 1,000 times more important than bombs." Inference being, you make us spend money on bombs. You make us spend money defending ourselves because you want to destroy us. If we had it our way, we'd just do this. We'd build houses. We'd build more daycare centers, more schools. Life would be great for everybody, not just in Pyongyang. But you force us to do this. Okay, you attack us, we are ready to defend ourselves. And we have to defend the right of the Korean people to defend themselves. With any weapons they have, by any means necessary. They are not foolish. When Colonel Gaddafi tried to make a concession to the imperialists and stop his nuclear program, well, you see what happened to him. They lynched him in the street. Same with Saddam Hussein. don't have weapons. This is because imperialism does not want any country, not Russia, not China, and certainly not Iran, and certainly not smaller countries. They don't want them having anything to defend themselves so they can just rule the earth by their military. Now, we don't know if there's going to be an attack. A lot of it seems like saber rattling, sending those ships over there, carrying out those exercises. We know all the missiles that they have in South Korea. I think there was a demonstration against them, THAAD. You know, the South Korean people are for the U.S. getting the hell out. They would love that. They get arrested and beaten up by the cops fighting for the U.S. to get out. You make our peninsula more dangerous. Please leave. You know. But here's the thing we have to bear in mind, comrades and friends. When you start saber rattling, regardless of your objective, you may just want to be sending messages and scaring people. There could be a miscalculation, and the shit could start, and the war could get on. And while I don't know, and I'm not predicting that that's going to happen anytime soon, the party has to be ready, and all anti-imperialists have to be ready. Because if a war starts, we got to be out in the streets shutting shit down. Yeah. We got to do that in relationship to any war, But this war, this is a big war. This is more akin to what some people used to call World War III. And we've got to get out in the streets. And we've got to pull others out in the street. And we've got to make this anti-Trump movement. In addition to everybody else who has known the anti-war, the usual anti-war, anti-imperialist forces, we've got to bring them out. And we've got to do stuff that makes a difference. A lot of people are asking themselves, why did Trump change? His racist, neo-fascist program, the contradiction in it was that he was, giving some, BS anti-war message. He literally said it. If you vote for Clinton, she'll bring World War III. He was talking about her wanting to be belligerent with Russia. And now look what's happening. Well, the obvious reason. The ruling class forced him to do it. That's what I say. That's a big part of it. They forced him to do it. Because the majority of the ruling class, Democratic and Republican Party, are neocons, or what some call globalists. In other words, they are for, and have been for some time, the U.S. using its military to maintain empire and making sure that no country can defend themselves against the U.S. empire. Some of them are more aggressive. Some of them are more tactical. Obama maybe forms in the tactical side. Well, let's just bomb a lot of people with drone strikes. Clinton probably a little further in terms of the aggression. But this is the majority of the ruling class. And sooner or later, Trump was going to have to give in. And they had, pardon, the joke, a Trump card. And that was Russia. They used this, Russia rigged the elections. And all these hearings and all these investigations as a threat over his head. And some of them want to take him down and take him out, impeach him, maybe even jail him. So it became very clear, I got to push this little neo-fascist Steve Bannon aside, and I got to embrace the neocons, the generals, and the Wall Street bankers. And basically, his government is made up of Exxon generals and people from Wall Street. It's a coup. It's so naked. It's so obvious. He's got to embrace them. There are other reasons. We could speculate him wanting to look tough. Bombs always make you look tough. I'm thinking maybe one of his economic advisors, his new economic advisor, I think his name is Gary Cohn. He's from, what's the bank? Goldman Sachs, yeah, right. I wonder if he didn't pull Trump aside and say, I got to talk to you. You know, this promise about bringing jobs back, not going to happen. That's not going to happen, man. You know, that's not the way capitalism works. You know, it seeks the cheapest, labor to exploit, And you can cut taxes for the rich, we're all for that. You can deregulate everything, Wall Street, health, the environment, make it unsafe for workers and everybody to drink water. You can turn the country into the global south. In other words, every place is a right-to-work union-busting place, But that's not going to bring those jobs back because that ship has sailed. And here's the big message, President. You can't fix capitalism. You've been promising you could fix it, but it's not going to happen. So you better think about something else. And a lot of times when imperialists can't fix the economy, what do? They go to war. About 2 months ago, I think it was, the party put on its paper's front page a call for a global general strike. And the questions began being asked. Who are they that they would call for such a thing, or even suggest it, Well, we all Workers' World Party, so that fits the name, But as unrealistic as that may be, and I think we should watch May Day 2017, not just in this country, but around the world, because it may be more interesting in terms of class struggle than at other times. We shall see. But whether a global strike is realistic or not, we asked people to think about it because we wanted to make a couple of points. I'm not going to go into all of them, but I'm going to raise a couple of them. One of them was this. We have to raise all the demands, stop busting unions, double the minimum wage, make it a universal minimum wage, and so forth. But we also have to, if we're honest with people, if we want to tell people the truth, we have to tell them that we've got to overthrow capitalism and we've got to replace it with socialism. And even though the immediate demands that people have may be what we're demonstrating around tomorrow and next week, the need to overthrow capitalism and replace it with socialism can't be so far back in our minds, in our consciousness, that it's meaningless. Because the people of the world, all life is in trouble as long as capitalism exists. And it's getting worse. The entire planet is in trouble. We don't know how much time we have. And the generation coming up, we can't tell them, well, you're going to have to live under capitalism. We did, good luck, I don't think they'll buy that. And they're smarter. They go on the internet, they read everything. Right. They can tell us stuff we don't know, us veterans. It's the truth. If we want to influence them, if we want to win their allegiance, if we want to try to mold them into a vanguard, into a fighting force that can help this revolution, we better tell them we're for revolution. We're for getting rid of capitalism and replacing it. The sooner the better, whenever that is. We're not putting who would do that, but the sooner the better. And it's got to be a desire that's burning in our heart. You want to get rid of this imperialist war, the threat of nuclear weapons coming from imperialism, the horror of this giant bomb dropping on the people of Afghanistan. You got to get rid of capitalism and imperialism. We had some other ideas too. And one was to at least put a picture in people's mind of the possible strength of a global general strike. I mean, imagine if that happened. Imagine if on May Day or any day there was a global general strike. Not just people who work or people who are fortunate enough to still have a union, wherever they are, whatever continent they're on. But everybody just shutting shit down in every continent, billions of people. That's power. That's important to us because that's our preferred definition or circumstances for the class struggle, not bombs. Some countries have bombs. Syria tries to defend itself. The DPRK can do it a little better. Russia can do it a whole lot better. Maybe even some liberation movements have bombs. And if they have to use them, we say we defend that right. But that's not our preferred way to prosecute the struggle. We want the masses to come out. It's bombs versus social revolution. It's reduced to that. We don't want the imperialists to be so high on using their bombs that they think they can scare us. When I came in here, one of the comrades made a joke to me. I think it may have been Steve. He said, where's the shelter? Some of us who go back to the 50s and the early 60s, you used to do these drills in school where you went under your chair. He said, we don't want to be worrying about bombs. We want to be about getting the masses in the street on a mass basis and shutting shit down so the masses can feel their power and see one day that they can occupy and they can seize and they can make revolution and they can take over things and they can end capitalism. That's our bomb. Call it a people's bomb, call it a working class and oppressed bomb, call it whatever you want, The other thing that we talked about in our call was the need to defend the most oppressed, who Trump has targeted, no surprise. The Black Lives Matter movement, women. They just signed something where, states are defunding Planned Parenthood. I think some of this war stuff is to draw attention away from that. Otherwise there might be rebellions in the street. This is an attack on women. So many other attacks go. I think Trump's even threatening to withhold Medicaid reimbursements to hospitals and to states, which means that if you have no money and you're sick and they treat you very bad if you're poor, they won't let you in at all. This is really reactionary. I know some of the Democratic politicians are talking about it, but I don't see them doing much about it except getting ready to try to win elections in 2 years from now, But I want to talk about migrant workers, see? Because the migrant workers are trying. They're trying to have a strike on May Day 2017 in this country. And they're trying in a big way. They're trying in an unprecedented way. They're trying to repeat what they did in 2006, that tremendous strike against the Sensenbrenner bill, when they shut down parts of this economy. And they're trying under very difficult circumstances, even more than 11 years ago. The fear of being fired, the fear of being arrested, the fear of intimidation and harassment, of being deported. Look what they're doing. I don't remember the name of the Attorney General. He was just down at the border, Sessions, making threats. We're going to arrest everybody, just like the sister said. We ain't asking questions no more. We don't care. We're arresting everybody. We're hiring 15,000 more border guards and ICE cops. We're setting up concentration camps all over the country to hold people. Under Obama, they established an office to regulate the way that immigrants were treated. It was a fig leaf. It was a cover for the deportations. But he based it on something, these are not really criminals. And so we shouldn't be putting them in solitary. We should take care that their food's okay. We should take care that we're not bringing up families and some things like that. That office was just closed. We will treat you like you are in Attica. We are criminalizing you. We always had criminalizing you, but now it's official. These workers are trying to fight back. And it's important that we do everything we can to help them. Now, there'll be mass May Day rallies, around the country. I'm not going to go through them. I'm familiar with many of them. We're going to have a big May Day rally here in New York. Our comrades from Bion and from the International League of People's Struggle and other groups, we're mobilizing for Union Square. It's going to be big. Many immigrants are going to be there. Many anti-imperialist activists are going to be there. Hopefully many ordinary workers will be there. We're building that strong. But we shouldn't forget what other workers are trying to do. They're trying to go on strike. And they're under the gun. And they need help. One of the things that we're doing, and it's a gesture at this point. I admit it's a gesture. But it's a heartfelt one of proletarian solidarity. This Tuesday, April 18, Workers' World Party is calling people to come to a press conference in front of 26 Foley Square, which is where the regional ICE office is.
Federal Plaza.
26 Federal Plaza. Thank you. On the Broadway side. 12 o'clock, right?
Yes.
We're calling people to come there to demand that there be no reprisals against workers who participate in the strike on May Day. No reprisals. And that our message is to all the bosses, some of whom fired workers after the March 15th strike, I think it was. Was it March 15th or was it February? February 15th. And we're also telling ICE, we will respond in any way we can to repercussions from the government or from bosses. It may be that most of our work in terms of defending these rights will begin after May Day, because that's when the firings and the repression will come. And we should get ready. We're not the only ones doing that. People all over the country are forming defense committees. Let me say this again, because I messed it up a little bit. 12 noon, Tuesday, 26 Federal Plaza on the Broadway side, to demand no repercussions, no firing against immigrant workers who participate in the May Day strike. We need you to come. Take an early lunch, whatever you can. It's important that we be there. And this is being called in the name of Workers' World Party. And we decided to do that for a number of reasons, not just to beat our chests. A little bit of that's in there. But we felt that because this attack on immigrant workers is really an attempt to smash working class solidarity, maybe it was time that an organization called Workers' World Party, said that it was going to try to organize some workers, however symbolic the numbers may be, to come out and say, we're workers defending other workers. That's an important political point to make. And we intend for that point to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Comrades, this May Day strike is so important to us for historic reasons. I mean, these workers want to strike not just on any day. They will be striking on any day. They struck on February 15th. I think some of the organizers are planning a week of strikes. We'll find out more about that. But they're striking on International Workers' Day. That's a high level of consciousness. That's a high level of consciousness. That's a communist holiday that's known all over the world, but beaten back and suppressed here. The immigrant workers have brought it back. They brought it back in 06, and they're bringing it back again. And I hope that other workers are paying attention, because they can learn from these immigrant workers. These immigrant workers are the most class conscious and the most militant sections of our class. The truth is, one of the reasons why the government wants to crush them and wants to scare them and terrorize them, because they know that they are one of the most militant sections of our class, and they don't want that militancy spreading. It's a danger to the ruling class. It's a danger to capitalism. This is true. There's more than solidarity involved here. But solidarity has always meant doing something that's in your own interest. We will not allow the government or bosses to come down on the most militant section of our class. One of the most militant sections at the very least. You know why? We need them. The entire working class needs them. And that's a fact. And we understand the historical importance of it, especially in this country. Especially in this country. You know, one of the founding documents of this party, and this was before we even founded the party, Sam Marcy, our late founder and leader, wrote this document in the early 1950s, The Global Class War. It says many good things. I think there's going to be a class on it. I think maybe Comrade Sarah is giving a class on it somewhere. But I'll tell you what the most important and relevant tenet of it is today. And that is that the struggle, which has mostly been in the East, amongst the oppressed, in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America, the liberation movements, that the time will come, based on capitalist development, when that struggle will shift to where, generally speaking, the workers have not been as class conscious, has not been as politically conscious, have not been as a whole revolutionary. But that will change. And that revolutionary class consciousness will shift to the centers of imperialism. That was the most important, relevant thing that that Global Class War document said. See? And we see it happening. This strike on May Day is that prediction, in some ways, coming true. You know, the great revolutionary Comrade Che Guevara was martyred 50 years ago today. Another thing happened 50 years ago today, actually today. The Cubans released the text of a speech he made to an anti-imperialist conference. I think the conference was in 1965 in Havana. It was called the Tricontinental Conference, meaning Asia, Latin America, and Africa. And it was anti-imperialist fighters. And he gave a speech where he basically said, if we want to give, I'm paraphrasing here, it's a long speech, many good points. If we want to give U.S. imperialism a heart attack, we have to have 1, 2, 3 many Vietnams. We have to begin cutting off their extremities so they don't get the blood and they don't get the oxygen to nourish the imperialist center. To some extent, that has happened and is still happening. But on another level, the way that the capitalist crisis has developed over the past 30 years, that's another way that's bringing the heart attack back to the center. We must dedicate ourselves. Now, others may disagree with us. We don't want to in the least bit sound chauvinist. Oh, the working class, the multinational, more and more black and brown and women and LGBTQ working class of this country is chauvinist, and they think that their role in the world is more important than others. No, we'll have none of that. That's not the point that we're making. We are, however, in the belly of the beast. And we're conscious of that. And we must remain conscious of that. Because what we do has an impact in the class struggle, the anti-imperialist struggle on a worldwide level. The ball is in our court.